Kobe Bryant said, "Leadership is lonely. There's a big misconception where people thinking winning or success comes from everybody putting their arms around each other and singing Kumbaya and patting them on the back when they mess up. And that's just not reality." He said, if you're going to be a leader, you're going to not please everybody. You have to hold people accountable, even if you have that moment of being uncomfortable. Those are really powerful statements. And those words really resonate a lot. It's so true, especially for new leaders. There's a transition in leadership that feels small on paper, but it is one of the hardest emotional shifts you will ever make. It's the moment you go from being a peer to being the boss. If you've ever been promoted within a team, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Because one day you're part of the group. You're part of the team. You vent and you commiserate together. And then almost overnight, you're responsible for them, not beside them, above them. You're the boss. And no one really explains what this does to you, not just to your role, but who you are becoming professionally. Leadership, it's not just about a change in position. It's a change in your own identity. You don't just step into leadership and stay the same person. You can't, or you shouldn't, because now you evaluate your former peers. You make decisions about them and you hold authority over their role. Pretending that hasn't changed, well, that's where problems will start. This is the part that people resist. You cannot lead a group and remain their equal. You can be respectful, you can be supportive, certainly you can be human, but no longer are you equal because you now hold an asymmetrical power. You decide performance evaluations, compensation input, promotions, and corrective actions. And that changes how your presence affects those around you. Even if you don't feel different, and you may not, people will experience you differently. And if you ignore that, you create confusion and tension. So let's talk about the hardest part, friendships that you've made. Because often these aren't just colleagues, these are people that you've worked with for years. They're people you trust and people you've vented with. You know them personally, and they know your personality, and now you're their manager. The instinct is to say, we will still be friends, and that's not actually true anymore, at least not in the same way, because real friendship requires equality, and leadership introduces power. So what happens if you try to keep both? You create tension. They expect preferential treatment, and others perceive bias. Over time, you're likely to lose credibility, not because you're a bad leader, but because you didn't reset the relationship. So what does this look like in practice? We have to set boundaries. First, you accept the change. You are no longer in every informal conversation, and you do not participate in team venting sessions. You don't engage in gossip. Second, create boundaries. You now have access to things they don't: compensation discussions, performance concerns, organizational decisions. You can't share like before, even if you trust them, because it's not about trust. It's now about your role integrity. Third is emotional boundaries. You can't process frustrations with your team. You don't use them as emotional outlets like you once did. If you do, you blur the line between leader and peer. Fourth, you have to have consistency in your behavior and treat everyone the same. Not cold, not distant, but consistent. Because consistency builds trust. Favoritism will destroy it. Here's the part that most people underestimate. Boundaries are not creating distance. They're creating a safe place. At some point, if you lead long enough, you will have to make hard decisions. Corrective feedback, performance improvement, and sometimes even termination. If you blur the lines, that moment becomes exponentially harder. And now you're not just a leader, you're a friend delivering consequences to another friend, and that creates emotional conflict, and it's not fair, either to you or to the person. Leadership requires necessary actions, and I've seen people delay those actions. And what happens? The issue gets worse. The team notices and trust erodes. The boundaries that protected you are gone. By creating boundaries, you create clarity. But more importantly, you protect your team, because boundaries have to be clear. If they aren't, people don't feel safe. They question, is this decision fair, or is there favoritism, or do I have equal access? Perception becomes reality, so clear boundaries create fairness, predictability, and trust. And trust is no longer built on your closeness with the people you lead. It's built on consistency. So how do you change this dynamic? First, you acknowledge the shift. Don't ignore it, name it. Our roles have changed, and I want to show up in a way that's fair to everyone. Second, change your behavior immediately, not gradually, immediately. Pull back from informal dynamics and informal conversations. Be consistent. Third, be transparent. You can care, you can be normal, you can be human, but you need to rely on consistency. And fourth, accept the discomfort. If it feels like you're losing a connection, you're not. What you're actually doing is creating a different kind of connection, one built on respect, not familiarity. Some relationships will change and some will distance. Some won't feel the same. But that's not a failure. That's alignment with your new role. Leadership requires trade-offs. If you stay socially equal, you will fail. If you're stepping into leadership, if you're managing former peers, if you feel attention, it doesn't mean you're doing it wrong. It means you're doing something that's very difficult for you. Draw the lines, not to create distance, but to create clarity, not to protect your authority, but protect fairness, not to disconnect from your team, but to lead them well. Because the strongest leaders know they're not the closest with their team. They're the most consistent. And when you do that right, you don't lose respect, you earn it. If this resonates with you, I will see you in the next conversation.